Here's the idea. Pay attention very, very carefully. It is simple, but it might take you a moment to understand how to use it and how to apply it. But when you do, or are you going to take off like a rocket? Oh, all right, you're going to take off like a hyperdrive spaceship. Now, creation is nothing but abundance. In, let's just put it colloquially, creation's infinite wisdom, you were created with exactly what you need to create more of whatever you need. Let's go over that one more time. When you find yourself standing in a room, outside, wherever it may be, and you feel, let's just say, oh, destitute, if that is how you feel. Let's just take that example. Nothing like extreme. To get your attention. You must understand the first part of this principle, very important in this paradox, in this power, is you still have at that moment every single thing you need. Every single thing you need. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you an example that is a metaphor in a sense, but realistic. Let us say you fancy yourself an artist. Now you're standing there. You have nothing. You think. What does it take to begin? What does it take to begin to be an artist? To draw something? Well, you say, well, I can't pay for the fancy paints. I can't pay for the fancy pens. I can just barely afford a pencil. Well, I know this is going to sound strange, but you know, people on your planet, when they didn't have fancy paints, when they didn't have fancy pens, when they didn't have pencils, used sticks. And they burnt the sticks to create charcoal, and they drew on cave walls. Some of the most beautiful art, you still think so today. Those cave paintings are extremely sophisticated, very beautiful, and compare with almost anything in any of your museums. And you know this. The point is they knew they had what they needed at hand. This is something you have forgotten because you have been surrounded with the idea that in order to be who you are, the only way you can do that is to have the fancy things. This is a notion I would urge you to get over now. Right now. It doesn't serve you. You don't need the fancy things. Don't be disappointed. We're getting to the point where you can have all the fancy things. But you must understand this is a two-part principle. It's a two-part principle. And it goes something like this. I'll just give you the formula right now. And you'll catch on, but we'll go over it again. Are you paying attention? Are you sure? Doesn't sound like all of you are.
Yes!
Okay. You convinced me. All right, here it is. Here's the formula. Let this sink in. When you learn to do more with less, you will be able to do less to get more. One more time. Pay attention. It's very powerful. When you learn to do more with less, you will be able to do less and create more. And after all, isn't that the idea behind what you call entrepreneurial spirit and being truly abundant? That you don't actually really have to do that much, that you don't really have to work that hard to bring in truckloads of money? Isn't that the idea? But how do you get to that point of not needing to do so much and yet bringing in so much? The way you get to the point of not having to do so much to make so much is finally learning to begin the process by learning to do more with less. That is the training that your consciousness needs to understand. When you accept, when you allow it to be all right, as an artist, to go back to our illustration, when you allow it to be all right to know that you can still be an artist in every sense of that concept, not lacking a thing from that concept, of its expression, of its heart, when you know you can be an artist with a stick, then you will understand how to do very little to bring to you any other tool of the artist that is possible for the artist to have to be able to express yourself on any other level you want. Remember, this is based on the idea that the greatest power, the greatest expression of power requires the most delicate touch. When you feel powerless, you attempt to move things around a lot to get them to work. You think you have to exert a lot of pressure. You think you have to exert a lot of force to make something happen. But if you stop and think about it, think about the power of creation itself. When you really are powerful, then all it takes is the slightest nudge of your little finger to move mountains. Because you are that powerful. And when you are that powerful, you don't have to exert yourself. That's the point. So when you know how to let it be all right to do what you need to do with what you have, that you can do more with less, you will empower yourself and enrich yourself and energize yourself to such a degree that the cycle will be completed. The circuit will be closed. You will use both sides of the paradox, and you will begin to see that as you become more powerful, you will need to use less of the power to accomplish more. But you've got to start by opening the gates of your imagination and by allowing yourself to understand that you, just as you are right now, without anything, you can accomplish what you really need to accomplish for yourself in some fashion. And you need to stop measuring the idea and comparing and contrasting and conflicting the idea that just because all you're capable of doing is making a picture with a burnt stick, that somehow that means you are not the artist you want to be. You've got to stop that now. Or none of this and anything else we're going to say will make any sense. Do you understand that? It's all based on this formula, on this principle, and that's it. That is the secret to money. The secret to money. When you know that you can do more with less, you will require less to do more. You need to train yourself to understand this. You need to train yourself to live this way. You need to train yourself to remember this so that it is your first thought. Not your second or your third or your last, your first thought. It is your priority. It is your job. It is your duty to yourself to understand how much access you have to everything, and that access requires almost nothing. Nothing. All you have to do is be willing to stretch and expand your definition of what it is you are and allow what you are capable of doing to be part of that definition instead of excluding it and saying, oh no, people who draw with burnt sticks are not artists. They're not the artist I want to be. Yes, it is. In every way. In every way. when you allow yourself to learn to do more with less, one of the side effects of then having to do less to get more will be this: your presence vibrating in love with abundance will trigger a love abundance reaction in others who also want to feel that way. And one of the ways they will then express that is by giving you things you could easily buy, but they will give them to you. And when that happens, because it will, then your response needs be the essence of grace, the essence of gratitude, the essence of humility. Go back into the understanding of doing more with less, knowing you don't need the more to do what you need to do, and in knowing that, thus creating the ability to doing less to get more. And in that state of gratitude and grace, somehow, some way, return the gesture and give to someone else. Allow yourself to increase someone else's abundance. It is always, no matter in what form it's expressed, it is always about being of service. When you fall into your excitement and stay in your honeymoon, you are in love. And you want to be, your heart wants to be in love with the world. Express that where you feel it is appropriate. I'm not saying you have to lose your head. You don't have to be unbalanced about this idea. But when you know, when your heart talks to you and you can hear it, you can feel it, then be of service. And believe me, one of the most fundamental principles, again, and you have heard it, but you'll hear it again. When you enrich others, you will be enriched. You will be enriched. You will be enriched. And now that you have begun to change your relationship to money, then part of your enrichment flow will contain lots more money, as well as other forms of enrichment and other forms of abundance. Remember, you are rich. The universe is abundant. You are abundant. What you're simply learning here, again, is to change your relationship to allow the abundance that is already available to you to fall like pennies from heaven, to shower you with riches, to let go of the conflicting conundrums of paradoxical definitions that don't work for you, that tear you apart. To unravel them, let them go. To see clearly that you are created, that you are a loving person, that you are a loved person, that you are a rich person, and that this can translate in physical terms and in monetary terms. There is no reason why it can't, and there is no reason why you can't, unless you give yourself a reason not to. It is in your hands. It is in your control. It is all around you. Opportunities are screaming at you all the time. But your state and disconnection from your heart creates a deaf ear to the ringing opportunities that you are presented with constantly, incessantly. There is no vacuum in creation. There is not a second that goes by when there isn't a sparkling, ringing opportunity for you to become, as you say, stinking, filthy rich. You can leave out the stinking part if you want. Though some people might like the smell of money. That will surround your aura and be your aura when you really, really, really let it in. Let's look at your idea of your monetary system. Now, when your money, your idea of money, your value for money, the value you have placed on your money, when the value of your money becomes less, you say your money is inflated. What kind of sense does that make? You say that something that gets bigger gets smaller. That something that gets smaller gets bigger. And when it all of a sudden has more value, you say it has deflated. Is it any wonder you are confused? No, not at all. Again, this may seem arbitrary, but stop and think about it. These are the kinds of signals that you have been giving yourselves and have been given to you for years concerning money. There is a very important thing to understand behind this. And that is, you need to look at money in exactly the opposite way you have been trained to look at money. In especially this case, the idea, first of all, of whatever this core value is that you have arbitrarily assigned to the idea of money, that you all agree is the worth of the money. But then once you have done that, you go throwing your own system out of whack, out of kilter, by labeling this value as fluctuating in such a manner that the label is exactly the opposite of what it is doing. I will tell you that in time, not right away, but in time, your planet's quote-unquote monetary system will actually finally be based, and this is what it is heading toward, be based on the skills and abilities people have to offer. And there will be not a government, but an organizational body that will put people together based on the skills they have to share with the people that need those skills. And synchronistically, everyone will find exactly who they need to provide what they need, and in turn will provide to others what they need based on who they are. But until that day, I understand that you want big fat wallets. And so let us proceed, because that is what this subject is about. So, with regard to this idea of inflation, deflation, let us look at the idea now in your minds. You can close your eyes, you can open your eyes, it doesn't matter. But if you will, see the idea of what you call one of your dollar bills, and see it getting bigger, inflating, 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 in the literal sense of the word, so that it is bigger, 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 bigger. And along with it, and congruently, it is more powerful. You have more spending power in that dollar because you're making it bigger. Bigger, 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 bigger. Now, stop it there at a certain size, whatever that size may be. Or if it's stopped by itself, that's fine. Now, let it shrink. Don't worry, it's all right. You can always inflate it again. There's more than enough air. Let it shrink. Down, 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 down. Tiny, tiny, tiny little itty-bitty piece of paper. So small, maybe it would just blow away in the wind like a speck. Little tiny dollar. No value, or almost no value at all. Can't even grab it, let alone spend it. Can't convince anyone it's $1 because it's so small you can't see it. Now, let it come back to what you consider it to be normal size. Now, look at it carefully. Don't adjust it. Did it come back slightly smaller than normal size and stop, or slightly bigger than normal size and then stop, or did it come back exactly the size you have always seen it? There are ways to tell. Allow yourself in your own mind to understand by taking a good look at it, by having in your imagination someone else walk in and put a dollar bill down next to it, as to whether it wound up a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. This will tell you the beginnings of what value you consider money in general to have. Whether it is really worth more or worth less than what you call the going rate. And this keys strongly into your relationship to money and your relationship to yourself as to whether you believe you are more or less than the going rate. Whether you have the ability to be a commodity worth exchanging, or whether you fall a little short. Now understand, please, this is important. Nothing that we are saying here today is about becoming a materialistic, egocentric, money-grubbing person. We are not talking about the idea of forming a fixation on material goods, but it is all right for you to attract material comfort in your life. There is a balance. You all know that. I don't really have to say it, but it's too late. I already did. So relax and let go of any worries any of you might have had about the idea that, oh, we're focusing so strongly today on the idea of getting a lot of money, but I don't want to be seen as a money-grubbing miser. I don't want to be seen as someone who hoards their money. You really are, I will assume, simply looking for that primary balance point that allows you to feel the freedom you know you deserve to feel. Yes? 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 All right.
Running out of money.
Running out of money. Oh, all right. Are you saying that that's not an exciting thing? It could be. It could be the best thing that ever happened to you. How do you know?
That's a good point.
Thank you.
It could be.
You see, this goes back to what we say about your definitions, because we understand how things work on your world in general. But the idea is that many of you become way too focused on one particular way in which things work when there are other ways. And you're not allowing your definition to be broad enough to include the other ways. When you focus only on one symbol of abundance, such as money, not invalidating it, not discounting it at all, but it's only one symbol. There are other symbols of abundance, other symbols of support. But when you only focus on one as if that's the most important one, you are closing the doors through which other forms of support and abundance could come. Because you're saying you won't recognize them. If it's not this, I can't be supported. I don't understand how I could possibly be supported if it doesn't come in this form. That's a very limiting and restrictive belief system. But when you understand that abundance is simply one of the natural tools of excitement, and it will bring you whatever form of abundance and support you need to continue to act on your excitement, then you can relax your definition and open all the windows and doors and let abundance come in all its forms. Sometimes somebody may just give you something. That's a form of abundance, you know. Mm-hmm. Yes?
Yes.
Sometimes synchronicity will bring you information that you need at exactly the right time. That's a form of abundance, you know.
Yes.
So why not let more forms of abundance come into your life rather than worrying that you might lose one particular form?
That sounds like a good idea.
Why, thank you. The idea is that if money needs to be there, then The right amount of money will come, but it may not be sufficient to allow for the big picture, but the rest of the other forms of abundance will fill the other spaces. So that sometimes it may be, well, you just need this much money, and you need this much gift, and you need this much synchronicity, and all together, you've got your support. Mm-hmm. If it needs to be all money, that's what will come, because that will be the path of least resistance. But your first clue that it might not be the path of least resistance is it's not coming. That's your moment to look around and go, could there be other forms of abundance that I could allow in? That's where your imagination opens up. Because when you're on the level of the vibration of your passion, you will actually be capable of thinking, of imagining other things that might bring other forms of abundance in. But if you're only focused on one form, you are actually not only closing the door to other forms of abundance, you're closing the doors in your imagination to being even capable of imagining how other forms of abundance could come to you. So you will not even conceive of opportunities you could be acting on that could give you everything you need, because you will not allow them to be visible, because you're not in the correct frequency. Mm-hmm. You cannot perceive what you're not the vibration of first. This is just physics. Mm-hmm. You have to be that frequency first. And when you are, all sorts of things that are commensurate with that frequency will come to you. You'll think of things. Other people might call the things you imagine crazy, but that doesn't mean they won't work for you. They don't have to work for them. They just need to work for you. Mm-hmm. Is this making some sense?
Definitely.
Is this helping?
A lot.
All right.
Hi, Bashar.
And you good day.
2 questions. We talk about the ego as if it is a being with consciousness.
Well, in a sense it is. Because your personality construct, to some degree, functions somewhat autonomously once it is created. That's why you can actually negotiate with it in some ways as if it were separate, even though it's not. Did that make sense?
Well, I just wonder, how does something go from... I guess the even bigger question is the difference between energy and consciousness is as sort of maybe paradoxical to me as the wave and the particle.
Yes.
So how does something go from not being to being a being with consciousness? You see
All
what I
right,
mean?
let's use an analogy that we often use, and that is the film or movie analogy that exists on your planet. When you are watching a movie, you believe that the characters on the screen, in a sense, have consciousness. Because, in a sense, an actor has given them a voice. But if you actually stop a moment and think about it, you're relating to nothing but a bunch of light. You're relating to an illusion. It's causing you to allow yourself to feel emotions, to think new thoughts, to respond in many ways to what you're seeing on the screen. But what you're seeing is actually not the living actor, nor even a real character. So the idea is similar. You have created a context, a character in context in the ego. You have used consciousness and energy and molded it into a certain pattern in such a way as it actually can be dealt with in an illusionary manner, as if it had its own autonomous reality. Make sense? This is for the purpose of creating reflectivity. Make sense? Yes, no, maybe?
Well, it does, except, when it turns into a monster.
Yes. Well, some of you like going to horror movies.
Well, that is a continued part of this question is sometimes I feel extremely angry that
Yes.
somewhere, someplace, some part of me decided it was acceptable to put me in an experience of distress.
Yes.
From the higher perspective, it expands consciousness in limitation and teaches
Yes.
other beings, and it's
Yes.
oh so good for the rest of the universe. But my moment is misery,
Yes.
horror, fear,
Yes.
anger.
Yes. And
I get angry that I've been put in
Yes.
that position, and I
Well,
want to know
the
who put me there.
anger, in that sense, is actually the recognition that you put yourself in that position. The anger is from the fact that you're not taking yourself out of it. Because you were not put in the position, you chose it. The anger comes from not being willing to choose something else. So you can use the anger to find out what the belief is that you have bought into that makes you feel like you should not choose something other than those negative experiences. That's what the anger comes from. You're angry at yourself for not choosing something different, and you can't figure out why you're not choosing something different because you're not in touch with the belief system that makes it seem all right to continue in the way that you have chosen in the first place. Make sense?
Well, if myself knew that I could get lost,
Yes.
and knew that I might have these terrible experiences and decided to do it anyway,
Yes.
that,
But you see,
that
from
seems
that
to me like a lack of love.
perspective, but from that perspective, it's not terrible. The idea is it understood that you were going to explore certain themes. It didn't in any way, shape, or form insist that you had to experience them in a negative way. That just recognized that that might happen, because anytime you walk into a haunted house, things might jump out at you and you might get momentarily scared. At the same time, if you look behind the illusion and understand that they're just special effects, you don't have to be scared. So the higher self knows that you have the capacity to treat these things as illusions and special effects and not have to choose to be scared, even though it knows originally that you could choose to be scared because you walked into a place that has things that can scare you. But the choice is yours as to how you experience the theme. It's not like any part of yourself forced yourself to have to experience negative or scary things. It's showing you that you have the power to transform these things, to see through the illusion. And you're only angry because you haven't done it yet. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, because it's sometimes hard to understand the layers of the self. And
Yes, but that's all right. The point is to not be angry at yourself for not understanding. That's the first step. And then you give yourself a break and say, it's all right that I don't understand. The paradox is it has to be all right for you to be angry. It has to be all right for you to not understand in order to actually let go of the anger and to understand. But you're not all right with that. And so what you're doing is you're devaluing an experience. You're devaluing the idea of dark side as a valid experience. And by devaluing it, you're attempting to push it away. And by attempting to push it away, you recognize it becomes a spring that has nowhere to go except to bounce back, stronger and stronger and stronger. So the idea is you have to accept that negative experiences are part and parcel of at least what's possible, and that they are valid as choices. When you validate that the dark side is a valid choice, then you don't have to choose it. The only reason you're having a tough time getting away from it is because you will not accept that polarity is part of existence. Make sense?
How do I get to the point where I do accept it?
The idea, again, is to recognize that without the dark side, you wouldn't know the light. So the darkness gives you the opportunity to actually see what you prefer.
Okay.
So you have to validate it as having a reason for existing and not judge it to have no place in reality. You contain dark and light. You contain positive and negative. You contain polarity. You always will. Therefore, you have to accept that part of you is dark and will always be. But you don't have to choose an experience from that side. But the only way to choose an experience only from the positive side is to validate that it's all right if you decide to choose one from the negative side. Once it becomes all right, once the negative side becomes an equally valid choice, then you don't have to choose it. There's no charge on it. There's no onus on it. You're not running away from it. You're letting it live there, but you're not experiencing the effect because you let it be a valid choice. And thus you remove all power from it. You just turn it into a neutral choice. That's all.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is how it works. Please, 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 again, understand. We are not giving you a philosophy. We are not giving you an opinion. We are describing an observation of how reality is structured, how it works. This is literally an instruction manual. By following the instructions, you allow the machine to work to your advantage. If you throw the instruction manual away, the machine may work, but you might also injure yourself. So the idea is just follow the instructions. Act on your highest passion every moment that you can. Take it as far as you can until you can take it no further. Do it with absolutely no insistence or assumption as to the outcome. Stay in a positive state no matter what happens, no matter what manifests, because the end cap to that instruction manual is it doesn't matter what happens. It only matters what you do with what happens. That's what makes the difference in your life, because everything is neutral and can serve double duty. So even though something may have originated negatively, even though someone else's experience or opinion of it may be negative, if you stay in a neutral state and in a positive state by knowing that you must be experiencing this for a positive reason, no matter how it looks, you will also and always derive a positive and beneficial effect from it, no matter what anyone else is getting out of it. That's up to you. That's your call. You have that choice, you have that freedom, you have that power to determine what this means for you in your life. Even something that you might neutrally not prefer must still be there for a reason if it manifested in your life. If you stay in a positive understanding of that, then you will be able to use what you don't prefer in a way that you do prefer. It will still give you some benefit. If nothing else, sometimes things manifesting that you don't prefer more clearly delineate the difference between what you don't prefer and what you do prefer, and that's a positive effect. So always use it to your advantage. It's always your choice to do so. You always have the ability to make that choice. And then you will experience the idea of abundance in all its forms. You will go with the flow of your own current in creation, and you will experience the effortlessness and the joy that life has to offer. When you have belief systems that create resistance to the idea of opening up to the other forms, you slow everything down by insisting that it can only happen this way, and I can only do this if this happens in this way. Then you're actually slowing down the process by which you might actually have been capable of doing whatever that is much more quickly and much more easily. Is this making some sense? So allow yourself, as you go through life and as you act on your passion to the best you can with no insistence or assumption on the outcome, please remember that third part of the formula, which many of you sometimes conveniently forget. I'm acting on my passion, I'm acting on my passion, I'm acting on my passion. And this had better happen, and this had better happen, and this had better happen, or something's wrong. That's not the formula. When we say act on your passion to the best you can, taking it as far as you can until you can take it no further, the implication in that statement is very clear. There will be moments when you will not be able to take it further in that way. That's not a block. It is an arrow pointing in an unexpected direction that is actually more representative of your true path. Let yourself go with the flow. Remember, sometimes many of you think that the path of least resistance is straight and true and short. Not always. In fact, not often. The idea is that sometimes the path of least resistance may be a very winding path, because it may need to get some experience under your belt. It may need to allow you to have a meeting over here with someone you hadn't met before. It may direct you over here to a bit of information that you require, so that you will have a deeper appreciation when you wind up wherever it is you are winding up by having gathered the things you needed on the way. That path is your path of abundance. The path of least resistance is the path of greatest abundance, greatest synchronicity, greatest allowance, greatest giving, greatest imagination, all of it. The idea being that even though some paths may look very short and very straight, if it's not your path of least resistance, it will actually take longer to travel that path than one that seems longer and winding, because the path of least resistance will offer no resistance. You will be able to move on that path much more quickly than a shorter path that has nothing to do with you, because that shorter path will be full of things that you will experience as resistance to slow you down, to indicate to you it's not your path. So even a longer path may get you where you're going much faster if it is your true path. And this also allows abundance to work more effectively for you in all of its forms, because then you will be in alignment with who you are. When we talk about the idea of being on your path, we remind you that this is just a euphemism. In other words, you're not on a path. You are a path. You are a unique expression of all that is. You are the experience itself that you are having. The idea is that all of your physical reality isn't outside you, it's within you. You are having that experience, you're projecting it within yourself, you're creating that experience within your consciousness. It is who and what you are as a unique representation and a unique reflection of creation, of existence, of all that is. So when you allow all forms of abundance to support you, then you allow yourself to truly take advantage of that particular tool in the kit of passion. because it contains very specific tools that will propel you through life in the most advantageous and joyful way. When you follow the formula of acting on your passion to the best you can, taking it as far as you can until you can take it no further, and you do this with absolutely no insistence or assumption as to where you're supposed to wind up, as we have told you before, you open up that kit that contains the driving engine of your life. It moves you through life very quickly because you are so excited to do what it is that excites you. You find the energy, it comes to you. It becomes the organizing principle of synchronicity. That means it brings you the opportunities that contain the highest excitement in the order in which you need to act on them. And whatever it is you didn't have time to do at the end of the day when you're excited about going to sleep, you didn't need to do that day. It is that organizational. It also is, as we have said, the path of least resistance that allows you to flow through life very rapidly, very effortlessly. It is the path that connects you to all expressions of your excitement in life, because there may be many. But it all interconnects. And if you follow that thread of excitement, you will see how they all interrelate and interconnect to get you where you need to go. Notice I keep saying where you need to go, not necessarily where you want to go, because that can sometimes be misleading. There may be times when what you want and what you need may be synonymous, but very often when you hold on to negative and fear-based belief systems, and sometimes you make choices out of desperation or fear, even unconsciously, what you want or think you need by wanting it is not necessarily what you actually need to be fulfilled. But to be fulfilled, you will be given everything you need, because that's another tool in the kit, is it leaves nothing relevant for you out. It is a complete kit. It contains everything you need. It is designed vibrationally for you. It's your path. You are the path. It's your frequency. That's what passion is. It's your frequency being experienced in bodily form as a sensation. And it is the translation of your higher mind's language to you. The higher mind speaks in energy. The translation, the way you experience the higher mind's language, is through the sensations called passion, love, excitement, creativity. That's how it translates in your body. When you respond by actually taking an action on your passion, you are responding in the language of physical reality, which is physical action. Because you can sit and think about it all day long. You can ponder it, you can wonder about it, you can give it lip service, but it will never actually be a response to your higher mind if it doesn't actually come through the physical actions you take. So the idea is that when you do take the physical action, you are demonstrating to your higher mind that you recognize that the passion is who you are, you're willing to act on it, you are committing to act on it. That's a response the higher mind understands from the language of physical reality, and therefore it will give you more to be excited about, and more to be excited about, and more to be excited about, because you're willing to act on the excitement, and act on the excitement, and act on the excitement. If you're not acting on it, why should the higher mind send you more passion, more excitement? You're not doing anything with what you've already been given. You have to get the cycle going. You have to get it running and keep it running by constantly acting on that passion, and therefore you're having that conversation, you're having that dialogue with your higher mind, and you're acting as a whole person, half in spirit, half in physical experience, the whole person working together in concert, in a partnership. So the idea then is that the kit of excitement, the kit of passion, also contains the reflective mirror that reveals to you anything that might be out of alignment in your belief system with your passion, so that you can identify it, see why it's there, realize it has nothing to do with you, realize it's out of phase with your vibration, and let it go and add that energy back into your momentum, into your excitement. But the idea of discovering something that doesn't excite you, that's part of your excitement. It's not a block in your excitement. It is part of your passion to find out what beliefs are not part of your passion, because then you are clarifying, accelerating yourself in that way by stripping away all the things that don't belong to you. Please remember, your own baggage weighs nothing. If you feel weighed down, you're carrying someone else's bags, someone else's beliefs. Your parents, your friends, your society, your schooling, wherever they came from, if you feel weighed down, that should be your first clue that you're carrying around baggage that doesn't belong to you. Drop it, and you will feel much lighter and be far more vibrationally receptive to all the different forms of abundance and support that are capable of coming to you in your life as the path that you chose to be. Does this make sense?
We, last night of your time, also mentioned that we would be speaking about the idea of the transformation itself, the accelerating wave of collective consciousness that many of you have intuitively recognized reaches a critical mass threshold in and around your cycle that you call 2012. This simply represents the idea of crossing into critical mass, where you have the potential for total positive reality. You have that now, of course. But after 2012, the idea of positive energy will be so much more available to so many more of you that if you should choose to ride the crest of that wave, the leading edge of that wave of consciousness, you can accelerate so rapidly, you can attract to yourself so rapidly the things that are representative of your passion, of your joy, without knowing in any way, shape, or form how these things could have happened, beyond reason, beyond logic, that again, your life will become literally so dreamlike, it will be at first dizzying and disorienting until you get used to it. Literally, you'll be walking through life like it's a dream, marveling at the miraculous synchronicities that just are popping up as a matter of course. Yes. When you ride the leading edge of the wave of consciousness. If, however, you choose to continue to compartmentalize your physical mind and make it responsible for being in charge, and have to know the how, and have to know the why, and have to know all the details before you'll be willing to believe that the higher self can simply bring this to you, then you will, by choice, position yourself somewhere down the line from the leading edge, in some of the eddies and currents and backwashes in the wake of the leading edge. Now, it doesn't mean that you cannot find benefit in those locations, in those gradations of frequency behind the leading edge. But wherever it is you position yourself, you simply have to understand the effect you create will be absolutely directly commensurate with where you have positioned yourself, and it will not be any more than that. By definition, it cannot be any more than that. As an analogy, your visible spectrum of light. You understand that in the visible spectrum of light, red is a low frequency, the lowest visible frequency you can perceive with your eyes. Violet is the highest visible frequency you can perceive with your eyes in general. We understand many of you are beginning to stretch these boundaries, but for the purpose of this illustration, let's just stick with the common labeling of this visible spectrum. Now, you know, if something exists on the frequency of violet light, it's at a very high level of frequency, very high level of energy. And it will experience the things that go hand in hand with that level. If something chooses to exist on the other end of the spectrum, in the red frequency, it will be functioning at a lower wavelength, a slower wavelength, a lower vibration, and will only experience the things that are commensurate with that level in the spectrum. It's all energy, it's all light, it's all the same stuff, as you say, but the difference in gradation of the vibrational frequency will ultimately determine what is capable of being experienced on that level. If you're operating at a certain wavelength toward the lower end of that spectrum, you will only perceive red. Only! You will never perceive violet at that end of the spectrum. If you are operating at the violet end of the spectrum on a high frequency level, you will only perceive violet. You will never perceive red at that end of the spectrum. Ever. So, the leading edge of the wave of your collective consciousness on this transformation, you can live there and ride the crest, or you can allow yourself to float back into the wake. Somewhere in there will be vibrations that will be representative of whatever degree you are willing to allow your belief system to take hold. So, you must understand that if you do that, there are consequences to that. The consequence being that you can only perceive what is directly commensurate with the level you're on, and nothing else. Nothing lower, but nothing higher. But you are all capable of choosing to ride the crest, the leading edge. All right. Now, when some of you consider this, you get scared. It's going too fast for me. I might fall off. I might crash. I might smack into a brick wall. As if suddenly one would appear. Of course it will if you create it. But again, understand that if you create that brick wall, that's an indication you are no longer on the leading edge. Brick walls do not exist by definition on the leading edge. They only exist back down the line, in the wake, in one of the eddies, in one of the currents that is representative of belief systems that there are such things as brick walls. But if you're truly riding the leading edge, truly, as you say, surfing the crest, then you will understand that just like being on the top of the mountain, you have a clear and unobstructed view of everything in front of you. And you ride that wave right into ecstasy. Ride the leading edge of the ecstasy. Allow yourself the opportunity to know you can. You don't have to choose to. But then if you don't be surprised by what is commensurate for that level. It's completely up to you what to lock onto, what to believe, what to align with, what to associate yourself with. You can, on one hand, say, I understand these concepts. I believe these concepts. I will live these concepts. I am this idea. It can happen instantly, effortlessly, miraculously, wonderfully, joyfully, creatively, lovingly, now, for me. Or you can recognize that you tend, quote unquote, choose to gravitate more to informational sources that confirm your own fear. Well, one should take their time. Well, one has to be careful with this stuff. Now, we understand that there is such a thing as recognizing and honoring whatever belief system you happen to have, and not pushing yourself beyond it if you truly don't believe you can. Because that would simply be disastrous. But the idea is to understand and to clearly take responsibility for knowing that if you are aligning with someone that says, well, you can't just go full throttle, because you have to be careful that you're not doing this and you're not doing that. You might fool yourself here, you might fool yourself there, and you have to take it easy. If you align yourself with that, that's all well and good. But understand that you are choosing to, and it has nothing at all to do with the fact that you could change your belief and allow yourself to ride the leading edge where things manifest instantaneously. You could. But if you are not, it's your choice. And that's, once again, where you really need to be passionate about being passionate and find out why you are choosing to not ride the leading edge. You will obviously have your own reason for not doing so. Whatever that reason is, whatever you feel is the need for safety, is up to you to determine. but just take responsibility and recognize the responsibility and the choice that you are making for understanding that it's not empirically true that you have to do it that way. It's not empirically true that you have to listen to what that person is saying as opposed to what this person is saying. It's just your choice. Take responsibility for it and then be passionate about finding out why you believe what you do, so that you can, if you are willing, open up to new beliefs that will allow you to move up the spectrum and be in the violet instead of in the red, financially speaking. So, allow yourselves to simply at every given moment recognize what you're doing. Let go of the need to understand the how of it. Because you see, one of the things that stops many of you from having the experiences that were described in the recording is that, for example, when someone says, well, you know, I simply got into the state where I believed I would simply receive more checks. Your physical, logical, reasonable mind goes, well, where the heck are they supposed to come from? I haven't done anything to earn that money. What are you saying? That some stranger just suddenly going to get into his head to pop a check in the mail to me for no reason whatsoever, and I'm just going to go to my mailbox and open a check that comes from a total stranger that's suddenly giving me exactly what I want? Yes! Yes, that is what's being said. Yes, that is one possible way. Yes, that is one possible example of what could happen. But when your logical, reasonable, physical mind going, how does that make any sense? The thing to remind it is that it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to make sense. When you stop needing it to make sense, then you'll make dollars. You have got to give up. You've got to give up your need, your physical mind's need for everything to have a reason, for everything to make logical sense in the physical third-dimensional world. If you say you wish to live in fourth-density reality, you must give up the things that are commensurate with the three-dimensional world, such as logic, reason. Not totally. I'm not saying be willy-nilly, fly by the seat of your pants people. I'm saying be aware of the fact that these things are simply points of view, and that you often stop yourselves from allowing these things to come to you because you logic them to death. You detail them to death, literally. You look for a chain of reasonable connection. And believe me, in fourth density reality, there are many chains that to a third density mind are not reasonable or rational at all. You have asked us, how do we travel from star to star? And we have explained to you, we don't travel from star to star. We're simply here, then we're simply there. The logical mind boggles. But how did you get there? How is it possible to go from here to there without stepping on all the places in between? That's not rational. That's not logical. Yes, it is from a different point of view. I'm talking about not abandoning logic. I'm talking about higher logic. The logic that comes from standing on the mountaintop where you can see the entire valley, the entire network, and where it makes sense to you on the mountaintop to say, if you actually go back 3 steps and then to the left, you're actually going to get there more quickly than if you just go straight ahead. Whereas down in the valley, the logical mind self is going, but everyone knows the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And if I go backwards, how can I get there sooner than if I go forwards? How? And the higher self goes, ugh. Because I can see that if you go forward there, the bridge is out. And if you take 3 steps back and go to the left, you go on a parallel road where the bridge is fine. But the point is that the language of the higher self cannot always communicate all those specifics to the physical mind, because the physical mind does not always have the capacity for that kind of translation. The only way that dialogue, most often than not from the higher self, translates to the physical mind is simply suddenly the urge to go back. The urge itself, the intuition itself, in the physical mind is the condensation and capsulization of the entire explanation from the higher self, saying, if you go 3 steps back and then go to the left and go down the parallel road, then the bridge is up. But all the physical mind will get is the tug. That's how it translates in physical reality, because the physical mind is not capable of actually perceiving in the same way the higher self is, and doesn't have to know all the reasons why and how. All it needs to do is know that that's part of who you are, and allow yourself to recognize that that is a communication, and to follow it, and that you have received the information that you need, because it's on the same wavelength of your joy, of your passion. Why? Because you say it is. And you flow with it, and thus find out that it is. Or resist it for as long as you want, and keep walking on the same road until you get to the washed out bridge and go, oh, why didn't I listen to my intuition back there? Because you thought you were in charge, smarty. But you're not. Not you alone. You are in charge, but not you alone, physical mind. Physical mind, higher self, that's the you that's in charge. Both aspects of your being is the persona, not just the physical personality self. That's only a part of it. So if you want to know you're in charge, you have to behave like the whole you, and be willing to open up and receive and perceive in whatever way it works for you, the dialogue and the communication coming from the portion of yourself that is the higher self, that has the higher point of view, that has the bigger picture, and be willing to understand it's working on your behalf. It's not going to trick you. It's not going to deceive you. The only thing in your reality that can create the idea of tricks and deception is the physical mind's belief system, not the higher self. Because it is only in physical, three-dimensional reality that you can have the experience of a personality structure that can actually deny its own truth. So any tricks, any deception that you may be afraid of encountering can only actually be coming from the personality aspect that's actually afraid it's going to be deceived. That's the paradox. It can't come from the higher self because that's a bigger picture point of view. And it can clearly see the road. And there is no reason, there is no logic for the higher self to go, yeah, take the left road. Watch and see how my lower self falls into the river. This ought to be fun. Oops, I went with it. You are under the assumption that the higher self is immune from what you experience in physical reality. Incorrect. You are one being, and the higher self will suffer the slings and arrows that the physical mind shoots itself with. You are one being, and it is not detached from you, and it is not immune to the consequences of the physical mind's choices. But because the higher self is closer to the vibration of unconditional love, it will overlook it. Again and again and again and again. Attempting to unconditionally loving you, reminding you, please take the other road, please. Oh, here we go again. It is not immune to the consequences of the physical mind's acts and choices. Do not assume that it is. But it is close enough to unconditional love to forgive it and to keep giving you the benefit of the doubt. That's the relationship of your higher self. That's its job. To keep on guiding you no matter what. Because it is the vibration of unconditional love that the physical mind often refuses to allow itself to perceive. Through the belief systems it chooses to buy into that deny its truth to itself. So, higher self says, please, 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 please know you are loved. Please, please, please allow me to love you. Please, please, please love yourself enough to know you're not alone in this. That you don't have to do it all. That you weren't designed to. You weren't expected to. Ever. Not once. Carry this burden by yourself. Let me be your guide because I am you. Become familiar with that portion of yourself. It is not detached. It is not separate. It is not aloof. It is not in its own realm unaware of what you are choosing to experience. It will also experience it in its own way. But nevertheless, will always overlook it and always urge you forward. Or left, or back, or whatever is necessary. Take a deep breath and let this sink in deeply, deeply, deeply. And allow yourself to at least consider the possibility that you deserve to be on the leading edge of the crest of the wave of consciousness of the transformation. Take another deep breath. Now, in terms of your time frame, what is the time remaining for this?